So I think it's great that we finally have an award that kind of supports that work, which is fantastic. Now moving on to some games that were not definitely not made in New York. The most nominated publisher this year, really surprising, is Nintendo. Not in the Game of the Year category, but several Nintendo games kind of up for awards this year. Donkey Kong Bonanza for Kids Game, Metroid Prime 4 for World. Pokemon is in there. Fascinating because this was obviously the launch year for the Switch 2, big story of 2025. Devin, tell me about that. How was Nintendo for you this year? You know, looking at all these games, how do you think the Switch 2's launch year was for 6 months, and how you feeling? What are the games you're digging from that list?
I do think it's very interesting because like I was one of the people, I got a Switch 2 at midnight at the same GameStop in my hometown where I got a Wii. It was a really cool full circle moment for me, but I think it's interesting that even though it's not nominated in our Game of the Year, it has still had this lasting impression across so many other categories that it's almost, I'm not going to say it's somehow more impactful than a Game of the Year like sort of nom, but it is in these other spaces like with family games and that sort of thing where it almost in that way perhaps has a longer lifespan for some stuff than like something that won a Game of the Year like a few years ago that maybe a lot of people have fallen off of versus like kids that are making memories with Donkey Kong Bonanza or Mario Kart World or something like that, which I think Mario Kart World kind of slaps. I think I maybe like it more than the average person, but I was also a Mario Kart stan since like Double Dash in 2003 or whatever it was. So I think I mostly just wanted a new Mario Kart game, but it really, I think, added a lot of fun stuff. And all of the new Nintendo releases have at least found fun ways to utilize the console, I think, in ways that don't just make it seem like the Nintendo Switch, but a little better, which I think is very important for the potential longevity of the Switch 2.
Yeah, I'll back you on Mario Kart World. I feel like since that game came out, there's been kind of a narrative about like, oh, but the post-launch support hasn't been great, like whatever. You know, I get it, like whatever. But like, man, first of all, it's up for best soundtrack this year. The remixes of all those Mario songs in it are
It's so fun.
fantastic, unbelievable, right? Like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth-esque in like scope,
Yes.
you know, and it's great. And just how expressive the movement is in that game. Like it's really underrated how much like grinding and jumping and wall riding and all these things like totally changed what that game is. I'm with you on that. Dan, how is the Switch 2 first year been for you? How do you feel? Have you been keeping up with it?
Because I agree with what you guys are saying. Donkey Kong Bonanza was great. Mario Kart was great. The hardware is really nicely done. The actual aesthetics of it, the design, the way the Joy-Cons snap on, it's also well done. But at the same time, I mean, I think we can all say that it doesn't have the same cultural impact that the original Switch did, which was such a watershed moment for mainstream and crossover gaming. And something is just, maybe it's where we are in the console cycle, and it's sort of in an off cycle compared to the other living room consoles. I'm not really sure what it is. I think Split Fiction plays really well on it. It's great for, co-op games. It's great for family stuff. I know a lot of people who went out and got them, but at the same time, not quite the same cultural cachet, but we're not living in the same era. You know, we have a lot more options now. We have a lot more handheld options. Everyone's got Steam Decks and Legion Goes and ROG Allies.
Right.
So the Switch is not the only thing in that category anymore.
I think we all remember that original ad for the Switch 1, where it had to kind of sell everyone on and even sort of explain what the Switch was. It showed the person like taking it to like this rooftop party and playing, with the Joy-Cons and all of that. And, and it's at first it felt like maybe this hard sell, this like weird thing. And then, but now we've all wrapped our heads around it. We all love it. And and now like handheld gaming of that sort, like you said, Dan, is just ubiquitous. We all fully understand it. We've culturally embraced it. And so, there isn't that need maybe necessarily right now for Nintendo or for the Switch to shake things up so much. Dave, I think I've seen some people criticize them for, oh, I want Nintendo to be weird. I want it to do something that feels novel. And I get it, but also I'm totally okay with them just iterating on what the Switch, already does so well and what a success that was. You're playing Metroid Prime 4 on my Switch too, and it's nominated on our Best World category. And I remember when Metroid Prime 1 landed, and it was that was where the word immersive for me first became a word that everyone used to describe a video game, that game. And here, seeing it run at a Metroid Prime 4 at 120 FPS, it takes that immersion factor just through technical power to, it enhances it because it looks so something about that higher frame rate just makes the world feel more immersive. So I'm cool with what the Switch 2 is doing.
Yeah, it brings me back to the GameCube era because I feel like the stuff that was releasing there was really like, hey, these aren't our bona fide hits. Like we're doing Mario Sunshine, as our Mario game. And I love that experimental edge, and I don't think you get something like Kirby Air Riders without it, which I love, and that's my Switch game of the year. I love that game. But yeah, really really cool selection of games, and I'm glad so many of them are represented across categories here. I think it's really cool. Another thing that I really love. My favorite category this year, personally, is our best writing category because it is very surprising. I think sometimes at shows it tends to be like, oh, the game of the year is kind of also the game with the best writing, and we have bucked the trend this year significantly. Games like Mafia: The Old Country are in there. Games like Avowed, really neat selections that I'm happy about. Seeing again. 66 games that are represented across categories. There's one game in here I just want to shout out in particular because I think it's one that maybe the audience watching doesn't know as much about in these nominees. It's a game called Blippo Plus, which is fantastic, and I hope that people check it out after this show. Whichever way that category goes. Can somebody explain to our audience what Blippo is? Devin, Carolyn, whoever wants to take it.
I mean, we could kind of go back and forth because I think we both have really strong feelings about it. But I just want to say, I remember the night that I told you, Theo, about this game.
Yeah.
You then messaged me at midnight and went, "You were right. This game rips." And I was like, I told you.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah, Blippo Plus, in a way, it creates an incredible world itself, but it does it purely through the experience of watching television. And I think for me, what really distinguishes Blippo Plus this particular year, this is a year where there've been a lot of conversations about AI use in game development and things like that. Blippo Plus feels so human and so warm because there's human beings on screen all the time, and it just has such a handcrafted feel. You can tell that it's very cohesive. It's very strange, but in a wonderfully human and creative way, as you sort of absorb the TV shows of what's a planet across the solar system is basically the core concept. Just yay for video games that feel human to their core and that have a real warmth to them.